Thank you. I'm sure all of you remember back in 1956 when a man named Arnie WooWoo Ginsburg started his show. Remember, it was called The Night Train Show? Well, he brought us music from the Everly Brothers and Del Shannon, the Associations, Bobby Darin, so many sounds. Now he's heard on Kiss 108 from 6 to 9 every day with his Nostalgia Show. Would you join me in welcoming Arnie WooWoo Ginsburg? Hi, Arnie. Good to see you.
Well,
oh, you did it. You did it all through those years. You brought us all that music. Now, that song that we just heard, that was an influential song, wasn't it?
oh, absolutely. The Twist was the song that got adults involved in rock and roll. Up to that time, rock and roll had been mostly teeny bop. But in the 60s, the early 60s, Dick Clark's American Bandstand was on from Philadelphia every afternoon. And that means the housewives and the kids were watching American Bandstand. And the adults became aware of the Twist, and all these Twist clubs opened up the Peppermint Lounge in New York. And that was really the key to the 60s to getting adults into rock and roll.
How many of you rushed home from school to watch American Bandstand? Oh, I know, I did. All right, so that was the turning point. But then there was a group that came out of California that sang about surf and sand.
Oh, right, the Beach Boys. But the Beach Boys, surfing was the big thing. And suddenly, you'd go to a place like York Beach, Maine, and see a wave about 6 inches high, and you'd see the kids trying to surf on it. And along with the surfing, the Beach Boys did Surfing USA and Surfer Girl, and then suddenly they became interested in cars, and they did songs like Little Deuce Coupe and so forth. And there was a whole West Coast aura of what was happening in music, and that really, the Beach Boys opened up the West Coast to music.
All right, then we moved from the West Coast to Detroit.
Oh, right, Detroit. Something else going on in the USA, and that was the Motown sound. And a group of girls who started singing in high school in Detroit, the Supremes, they had hits like Baby Love, and then the Four Tops and the Temptations, and the whole Motown sound.
And Marvin Gaye?
Oh, Marvin Gaye and Mary Wells. But the whole thing is that that probably gave the roots, along with the soul music, of what became the disco sound today. So the Motown sound was there.
Really influential.
And then what?
Then we all know what happened. What came to us from England? Can you guess? The Beatles. They really changed music, didn't they?
Yeah, the Beatles were probably the turning point of rock and roll. And incidentally, I was the MC for the Beatles when they appeared at Boston Garden and Suffolk Downs. They were only here twice. And let's look at what the Beatles did to music in the 60s. First of all, they were the biggest hit all over the world. They unified rock and roll all over the world. But more important, they attracted jazz musicians and classical musicians. Everyone recorded Beatles songs later on. And it was their creativity and their ability to write songs and interpret them that created a whole new generation of made rock and roll universal.
Yeah, they brought jazz into it and even classical sounds, and we hear it. Their music was so complex.
Oh, absolutely.
For rock. All right, but then America answered, didn't they?
America answered in a very kind of sleazy way. A group called the Monkees. And what happened was the Monkees was not a real group that evolved. Don Kirshner, who does Rock Concert today, Don Kirshner advertised in Billboard magazine. He was looking for 4 musicians who would be counterparts of the Beatles, and they didn't have to be musicians. They just had to have the look and the feel. And it was a synthetic group, but the Monkees were immediately on TV with the Monkee Show and their record first, Last Train to Clarksville and so forth.
And they did have one token Englishman, remember?
Oh, right, Davy Jones. Little
yeah.
Davy, and Michael Nesmith and Peter Tork and so forth. But the whole Beatle thing, it was a synthetic group, but it worked and it was fun.
And then we moved into the drug culture, remember? The sounds of the Mamas and the Papas.
I think we're still there. Anyway, the Mamas and the Papas, very subtly, there's songs like California Dreaming and so forth. That was part of the LSD era, and Timothy Leary and Turn On and so forth. And then followed the Jimi Hendrix and the whole era of drug culture and drug music. The Mamas and Papas, in the most subtlest of all ways, people weren't aware it was happening, were part of the beginning of the drug culture. It was happening, and they musically expressed it.
Isn't it sad that we lost Mama Cass and Jimi Hendrix, though? You know, kind of a strong statement. All right, one thing, we can't let you get away without showing us your toys. Remember these sounds that Arnie made with these things? Come on, demonstrate for us, Arnie.
The old Arnie Ginsburg Night Train Show. First of all, The show was called The Night Train, and trains used to go, and that's how we got the nickname WooWoo. And we just kept adding other sounds, horns, and then blast from the past. What else did we have?
Oh, I love this one.
Oh, your
Go
host
ahead.
up and down the coast.
How does this one work?
Oh, this is my favorite because when you were a kid, you or your brother or sister or somebody in the family had complexion problems. Your disc jockey had the answer. There was Stridex and Physahex. We'd use this in the commercial. Go like this. Hey, kids, do you have pimples?
Oh, Arnie WooWoo Ginsburg.